Welcome to Electrical Theology, Esoteric Life Coaching. Hey guys and gals, my alien brothers and sisters in outer space in different realms, appreciate you showing up. This is a show that shares esoteric knowledge for the purposes of enlightenment. I'm going to do this through unfolding the moment with an undefended heart and taking responsibility for our thoughts, actions, and emotion. If this is your first time here, appreciate you showing up. If any of this is a little confusing, you can go back and watch some of the other videos that are out. There's 30-something videos out. This is the beginner's information about how to communicate, how to understand who you are, communicate with yourself, how to communicate with others, for the whole purpose of being able to communicate, learn, and listen deeply when we start going beyond this earth. In the next few years, we're going to have, or in this year and the following years, we're going to have more and more encounters, if you will, with our brothers and sisters from outer space. And it will behoove you to have the abilities to communicate and not to judge them as bad or good, evil or good, like we do other religions and politicians and other people around the world. Right? We'll have to understand how to communicate, and if we can communicate without being offended or scared or intimidated, right, that we will be able to go deep within ourselves and be able to discuss and have conversations, right, converse with that verse, whatever their verse is and our verse is. If we have the ability to make an effort, a deep, open-hearted, undefended effort to communicate with these beings, and they'll come and communicate with you. And that's what this channel is sort of about. And looking at our mythologies and history, I have over about 45 years of studying the mythology, histories, folklores, religions, the metaphysics, the paranormal, esoteric, supernatural, all that good stuff, guys. I've studied it for my years, and my whole purpose is just to share this information with you, what I've learned and experienced, and for the purpose of being able to communicate not only with yourself but others, and if interested in what these classes and sermons are about, is being able to communicate with those outside of our own matrix or realm. So in this episode, guys, we're going to learn how to learn. Right? Most of us, we were taught or indoctrinated by a governmental system, and they taught us what they wanted us to learn, not what necessarily you wanted to learn. Now, over the years, we have gotten schools like Montessori or homeschooling methods like the unschooling method, and now more and more people are starting to learn from home or get all their education from udemy.com, teachable.com, YouTube, and other sites. I'm not affiliated with any of these guys. I'm just bringing them up because this is where I love to take courses and classes, because I can learn at my own pace, and I can continually pay a hell of a lot cheaper than I would for a indoctrinational camp educational system. Nothing wrong or right about it. I just don't want to be indoctrinated. I want to think for myself, critical thinking, use rationality, and be able to not subscribe to whatever the government wants you to learn. Nothing wrong or right, guys. So let's crank open those spacecrafts, those spaceships, so we can relate with each other's ships, and turn on those transmitters and receivers, and let's get going. So in recent videos we've had where we talk about a broad direction and specific direction. Now this, because I taught it earlier, and there's videos for that, is everything goes to a broadcast to a specific cast, right? Or broad direction to a specific direction. So this is across the board, where if I want to learn, I'm going to have a broad direction or goals, and then I want those to go to a specific direction or goals. And again, I'm not a big user of the word goal, but you understand my reason here. Is just have a focus, an end prize that you want, and then work towards that. Now, how do we fill that gap? We also know this gap as a present state and desired state. And we know that in order to fill this gap, this is a bridge. And this is literally, the more we learn and understand how we learn, this then develops in our brain the synapses and the ganglias to reconstruct themselves or redirect themselves. Again, direction. We're going to take our brains in a broad stroke and then get it more, unravel that, unfold that, and then specifically redesign it, right, to go to where it is that we want to learn. and for the purpose of why we want to learn what we want to learn, right? Because we don't know what we don't know. So we'll have classes later on understanding why, or what's your purpose, what's your meaning to specifically, uh, or what's your life mission here on this planet. And we'll get into specifically by understanding the broad arena and then get on the specific sport you want to play in that arena. Right? So some of these gaps that we have to fill is understanding that this Shambhala hierarchy, God, and the seven frequencies. We have to understand desired state to specific. We have to understand will, wisdom, and action, and the discipline, understanding, awareness, insight, actualization, and then that's the wisdom. Once you understand that, that kicks in the will, wisdom, and action. And we'll be talking about action because once you understand that action, right, when we don't start off with desired action, we don't desire a certain action, and we just take disciplined action via knowledge that we've gained. Now, once we stay on that course and continually learn, no matter how much our experiences want to stop us, right? Because we want to stop because our ego says, oh, this is too hard or this is uncomfortable. I have to get out of my comfort zone. But if we just understand that when you're gaining the knowledge and discipline toward a specific direction or goal, then we'll get the celebration, the happiness, the joy after we get the end result. And so what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that if we chase a desired, right, we're in a present state going to a desired state, but the desired state, to get to the desired state, is discipline, knowledge, and more discipline, right? And understanding and awareness. That's what gets us there. Now, I don't beg, borrow, steal, whine, any of this type of stuff to get to my desired state. Right? If I don't accomplish what I deem my ego deemed a specific time and place and destination, if I don't reach that, it doesn't stop me from continuing my path. Right? If I don't get the joy because the action's not giving me what I want, then I'm not going to stop. But if I understand that I get my joy after I get the desired state, so my actions are disciplined with knowledge and all that good stuff, and then once that continually, that congruency and consistency, our core values that we talk about, through that practice, it gets me to that end goal, that desired state. Once I reach my desired state, that in itself brings me the joy. Does that make sense? So I'm not chasing desired in my action. I'm doing that with discipline and knowledge and on awareness, all that good stuff. And then once I continue that, it then brings me to a point that I attain that desired state. Now I can celebrate, enjoy, and revel in that. That makes sense? All right, if not, leave me a comment below. I'll be happy to describe that differently. So once we understand this broad direction of learning, right, what sort of is the goal to learning is that we need to have a direction of why we even need to learn, and what's the point of learning what we need to learn, and what are the steps. Part of our reframing and all that good stuff is that we want our learning to be experiential, organic learning. What do I mean by that? It has to come organically, naturally, right? It's simple, right? The way we trained our kids when they were younger, the way we educated our kids and we homeschooled them early on is that we sort of learned the unschooling method, a non-indoctrinated method. And we allowed our own kids' curiosity to get the best of them and then be able to saturate what they wanted to learn. And so what we did is we had tons of information on all subjects all around at their age levels, and then educational toys, computer games, stuff like this, and then we just set them loose. And so they would be directed. Some of them were directed toward reading, others directed toward math, others directed toward learning through computers, whatever, but we had all the methods there. And we just let them go at it. So what they would do is for 3-4 hours, they would just saturate themselves with what they wanted to learn. We didn't put them on a schedule. Right? When they got tired of it, they would quit and then go take a break, or they'd come back and then hours later go back and read something else or do something else. And because of this, they learned at a rapid pace, their own pace. They learned at their own pace, which when a child is excited about what they're learning or interested in it, they'll saturate that. That's experiential organic learning, right? Because they're interested in it. It's organic for them to learn this in the way they want to learn it, right? So when we put them in a charter school, when we first, to give them more exposure to the arts and science and some other stuff, they put all the children up at a grade or two ahead. Now that wasn't our goal. We just educated them the way that they wanted to be educated. And when we put them into the charter schools, then they tested them and they put them all ahead. And one of them went about 4 grades ahead in their reading, but I didn't want my young child being in with a lot older kids, right? It's just a different energy, so I let them sort of dictate where they were the most comfortable and be able to. Another one was ahead in math, and they put them ahead 3 grades. But then it was very stressful for them, not the math, but the environment of older kids. So we then say, hey, do you want to go back into a lower grade? And they're like, fine, that's no problem. But they excelled in math wherever they went, so on and so forth. So that's an example of experimental organic learning. And again, that's authentic. It's a natural, organic way of learning, right? It's not a regimented, standardized, sit in your chair, right, with these kids that are full of energy, to have them sit in an uncomfortable chair and then be forced to learn a certain way, right? Because every child learns different. So it should have a broad understanding, too, of core values, right? So we did teach core values, right, of honesty, be upfront, and to say and to help them explore their emotions, right? Now, were we perfect at this? Of course not. It's always a learning curve, right? For us educating our kids, it was more motivational for us to teach them this way than it was a standardized way, which was from a system from the 1930s, which is still around. And now they want to teach all this other systems that I don't feel is productive for education. It's more about indoctrinating and brainwashing the kids to believe a governmental way. Again, government means govern the mind. So the whole system, who supports and who regulates everything, it's the government for public education. Right? So that sort of brings us to why were schools even started and who started the schools. Right? The colleges, the universities, well, entrepreneurs did. The billionaires started the schools. Same thing as they're trying to do today. They're trying to change the whole system because what they're teaching in schools today is so outdated that the kids aren't getting the proper education. So when they come out, they want them to go another 4 or 8 years in something that's already outdated and then be in debt and try to get a job that only pays 20 grand a year, but yet they're 400,000 in debt. Now, if it's a specific degree, science, math, engineering, yeah, that's a specific training, that's fine. But if it's just a liberal arts, no, you can learn any of that stuff in a YouTube in a day. We can learn what a PhD did in 4 or 5 years. We can learn that in about 6 months to a year now. Right? Not only because our minds can absorb it quicker because of technology, right? We can do it at our own pace in front of our own computers. Right? I can go to Harvard, I can go to Oxford. All I do is chime into theirs on YouTube, and I sit there and study science, math. I study radar. I study whatever I want because they have whole classes on there, and they're free. Right? Anywho, so why were schools started? Because of the Industrial Revolution, and so this is between 1760 and about 1840, roughly. And so they needed people who understood how to run these rich guys and gals enterprises, right? And how to, because you got to remember that back then not a lot of people were educated, right? And today only 20% of people have a higher education anyway. And the language skills, communication skills, educated in math and science, this wasn't around. Most people were illiterate. They worked on farms. Right? Now, that's not to say they weren't smart, right? They were able to create and invent based off of necessity. But when these factories opened up, that these people the billionaires and millionaires needed people to work for them to keep their enterprise going. So what did they do? They started an educational system. Right? All your major schools are started by a rich billionaire or millionaire, right? Because they need people to continually run their business. Right? So they didn't want uneducated people, so they created the schools to educate the people to run their business, right? Because people were illiterate, so they hired people, educated these small percentages, and these small percentages then educated the illiterate. Make sense? Let's continue on, guys. So we have to be motivated. So whatever you learn, you have to be motivated, right? And this is about moving ions to receive more flow. More flow is education. Education is just educated ions, right? We're taking this knowledge, this divine knowledge that I'm teaching, and move that into your body, right? And move it from within your body to outside your body, and know how to communicate without being offended or any of these other terms or triggered uh, out there. Right? Everyone's gotten softer and softer because the governmental conditioning. Again, this is not wrong or right. It's just that you have a choice. You can go into believing what someone else is teaching you or educate yourself. Okay? I'm always about educating myself. I'll use these other systems, absolutely, but education is not anything to be believed. Right? And I want you to understand this. Education is not to be believed. It is not a religion. Right? But they want to treat it like a religion, like what they're teaching is fact. But we know that in a couple of years, the computer stuff that they're learning now is outdated. A year in the computer world is already outdated. It's old. So what we knew then is different now. And in science, the more we understand science, the more we understand that what we thought was real is not. So you have to be motivated to move beyond what's being taught for the last 100 years the same way, or standardized, right? So in order to move you beyond your comfort zone and into higher frequencies, to communicate with beings and other people outside you, again, increase your telepathy, the telepath. The path is the path, right? In order to get on other planets, right, is that you're not going to be scared to do anything because you're going to have enough education to be able to communicate with beings without being told that they're all scary and they're going to kill you and brainwash you and operate on you. Right? This is sort of an indoctrination that's going on through the mainstream media. There are alien races out there that are just as kind and nice as you and me. Are there other races that are very stern? Absolutely. And if you have a lack of education in this realm, then you're going to think they're scary or evil. Right? You just have to understand and meet them in the middle of their educational style or their communication style. If you're open to learning how they present themselves, then they'll take time with you as long as you're humble, and we'll get into humility here in a minute. So you have to be more motivated to change than to remain the same. Is basically the point I'm making. Having the motivation to learn can fill in missing pieces to what you desire in life. And so again, there's that desired state from the present state. But if you don't have the education, again, other people's education is their education, right? So in order to move your energy out of an indoctrinated system, you have to gain your own knowledge and your own awareness, and your own discernment, your own insight, all that good stuff. You have to have the will to move out of that. You have to have the will to move the old ions out of the way with new ions, push them out, and then be able to embrace new experiences, which are going to be unfamiliar, which can be scary, but if you're educated and have the right tools, it'll be fine. So we can progress beyond the collective unconscious. So what does this mean? Again, being able to communicate, because it's all frequencies. So when you increase your ability to bring in more energy through awareness, then you can transmit a more powerful signal because you're empowered now, right? Empowered is power. And so that gives you a stronger transmitter, which then other people will pick up on that. If I have a little walkie-talkie, I can maybe get a mile or two, but if I have a Citizens Band walkie-talkie, I can reach miles and miles and miles. Does that mean somehow the truckers I'm talking to are evil? No. Or am I going to call them, am I going to judge them to be evil because they didn't want to talk to me when I said breaker, breaker? Right? No. Right? Or they can yell at me and tell me to get off there because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. That's fine. And I'm going to accept that with humility and say, okay, what do I need to educate myself? I'm not going to get triggered. Right? So we need to beyond the collective unconscious into the collective conscious. That means you're individuated from the collective unconscious. We're still an energetic collective, right? But you're an individual now within that collective. So what are some of these styles, guys? So we have to have that desired. Again, what's your goal? Desired state. I'm in a present state. I want to move beyond where I'm at. I want to embrace my mission here on life, to my purpose. I want to have meaning. I want to wake up every day and go, wow, this is exactly what I want to do, right? I have to have desired motivation. I need to have the desire to move, right, from present state to that desired state. And now a learning, so when I do, I'm going to be learning acquired through experiences. So every time I move out of an old, I'm going to be presented with new circumstances, which are going to give me a whole new set of emotions. right? Or I'm going to have emotions to them, but I can then go, okay, I have the tools in which to unravel this, right? To unfold this moment, to state what is with urgency and immediacy and say, hey, this is very uncomfortable. And why am I uncomfortable? Well, let me break it down. What's making me the most uncomfortable? Let me understand that piece first. So I'm going to gain knowledge to get that understanding. Making sense? I'm not going to run away from it. I'm going to dig in deeper. That deep learning comes from deep listening, and then I can have deeper communication, which means in space I can go deeper into space and communicate. Making sense now? I'm transmitting, receiving. All right, so once I learn this acquired information, then what I'm going to do is lead by example. Right? What I mean is I'm not just going to teach all the time. I want to show people what I'm doing. Right? I'm showing people that I'm willing to close down all my businesses that I was no longer happy with, and then go through a transition, learn more information, and now I'm leading the way by doing this. No matter what my physical circumstances are, my internal esoteric is the one driving me. I'm not letting my physical actions dictate my happiness, right? But once I receive the desired state, then I'll experience that happiness, right? So I'm leading by example after I learn something, right? A lot of our teaching institutions, they go right from college right into the classroom. And what that does is produce a very narrow-minded individual because they're institutionalized by the institution. Right? But if you learn multiple backgrounds, I have learned multiple backgrounds, as I said before, the supernatural, metaphysical, all this good stuff. I've done this for 40-something years, so I have a very broad perspective. Am I really an expert at any one? No, and that's fine if someone wants to be an expert at a certain period of time and that. But again, they're only able to be a part-time expert because they may know their field, but it doesn't mean they're right. Right? And as I said before, education is not to be believed. It's just information. Take it with a grain of salt. Or it has an agenda by a group of individuals or a group that wants you to believe the way they're believing so that you can continue running their factories and they can continue making money off of you. Right? Again, nothing wrong or right about this. You just have to make a choice. What system do you want to be a part of? So education is not about believing. It's not a religion. Right? But they want to make it so. But I'm telling you, it's not. I tell all my kids, don't believe anything this teacher says. If they come off like it's a fact, then you need to question them and say, why? And if that teacher gets upset, then that tells you that that teacher doesn't have any more discussion because they were indoctrinated and they weren't taught to think beyond that. Right? I've taught many classes and many things in teacher training, all this good stuff. Now again, I'm not saying all teachers are this way. There's great teachers. I've had some great teachers. One of my best teachers I had was in 8th grade, believe it or not, and it was mythology, and I just enjoyed that class, and the teacher just made it enjoyable. Right? They had a broad, vast understanding, but is mythology fact? It may be built in little minuscule parts of something that happened in history, but we don't know. We weren't there. Right? So anyway, teaching and instructing. So once you understand, so you lead by teaching and instructing others. So once you've desired and start moving, you can get information. Now, we can teach others. It doesn't mean we need to be an expert, but if we have a little more knowledge than someone else, then we can teach those other people. And that's what this is about leading, teaching. As long as you're 1 or 2 steps ahead of someone else, then you can be the teacher. Okay? So we start teaching and instructing what we've learned, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm teaching you and instructing you of what my 45 years or more of experience. Now, it's actually longer than that, but it sounds weird when I was studying this stuff at 4 years old, learning about aliens and ESP and all that stuff, because my dad had the books around it, and I was just interested in that, and I had my own experiences. So I've really been acquiring knowledge since that young. Anyway, once you have that teaching instructing, then ask for that feedback, right? I'm asking you for comments below, because my style of teaching is just sort of off the whim, off the cuff, because all the knowledge is based up here. So just like with my kids, they didn't have to remember stuff. Their minds just acquired that information naturally and organically. So when I studied all this stuff I did, it just sticks with me organically, right? But my teaching style is not always other people's, but I'm open to listening to how there's 5 different ways mainly people learn. Once you understand the teaching and instructing, then you want to ask for feedback and reflective criticism. Now, how people give you the criticism is irrelevant. Again, if you're offended, that's on you, right? Then you're taking it as a personal attack. If that person hasn't spent a lot of time with me, they don't really know me. So if it's just someone off the internet saying, "Yeah, this is stupid stuff, this is bull crap," that's okay. It doesn't offend me, because in all actuality, it's just that person's own version of themselves. And in some sense, they may be wanting to do what I do, but they don't think they don't believe in themselves enough to do that. So they want to project it out on someone else, their own unhappiness, because they don't have the tools to go from present state to desired state, or their goal. So I'm open for that feedback. Now, whatever that feedback is, because I'm the one asking for it, I'm questing ions, I'm questing different perspectives, because that's going to help me. And I'm going to receive that with humility. So when I go out and communicate with other people, places, and things in other realms and dimensions, I'm going out there with humility, right? Because I don't know everything. And I'm going to be a constant student out there and let them know, look, I don't understand all this, and I'll be happy to learn. Just I need it broken down a certain way, the way I learn, if you're patient enough with me. So as a good teacher, we're patient with people, because we're not really expecting something from someone. We need to check in with ourselves and see if we're presenting the information enough. So if people are confused, that's on us, not them. So what we're going to do is ask for that feedback. Make sense? All right, guys, and then that brings us back down to where we finally hit our desired state from our present state. So in essence, we start with present state, acquired learning, we led by example, we taught, we instructed, we got more feedback so we can become better, and then we do this all with humility, and then we now reach our desired state from present state. So this is how we learn how to learn. All right, now we're going to break some of these down in the next episode, because this video is already long enough. So we'll break some of these down. Some of these are obvious, but then other ones we'll spend a little more time with that, all right? So if this is your first time, hopefully you enjoyed this information. And then if you are a continual watcher, I appreciate you. Thank you for showing up. Thumbs up. Like this video, share it. If you found something important with it, share this video so we can get this information out to more people, all right? Appreciate your time, guys. Take care.